Well, joining us now from the spin room is the Shadow Paymaster General, Jonathan Ashworth. Right, ready for some spinning. What's your reaction to the debate?
Well, I think what it is confirmed that if you want change after 14 years of failure under the Conservatives, then you have to vote for change on July the 4th, and that, of course, means voting for Labour. That is the only way in which we can turn the page on the chaos and decline that we've seen. That's the only way in which we'll start fixing our NHS, rebuilding our NHS, creating good, well-paid jobs for young people, and, of course, fixing the problems at our borders.
Keir Starmer was given, again, quite a hard time about his support for Jeremy Corbyn. One member of the audience saying that he's effectively lied to people if he was saying that he would be a good Prime Minister at the time. Now, you, of course, served for Jeremy Corbyn. I remember interviewing you many times under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership when you were part of the Shadow Cabinet. Have you had, I guess, any kind of existential questions about your support for Jeremy Corbyn, or do you think that actually it was the right thing to do?
Well, look, I never supported Jeremy Corbyn to become a leader of the Labour Party, nor did Keir Starmer. He voted twice against Jeremy Corbyn becoming leader of the Labour Party. Keir Starmer told Jeremy Corbyn what he thought of his leadership and said he shouldn't continue as leader of the Labour Party. But of course, look, I've been in the Labour Party since I was 15. We all knew we were going to get hammered in those elections, but I wanted to do all I could to get good colleagues re-elected. Many of them sadly lost their seats under Jeremy Corbyn, but we worked hard to get good colleagues re-elected because we knew we'd have to rebuild and change the Labour Party after the election. And we have changed the Labour Party. It's a different Labour Party. And of course, Keir Starmer has changed the party. Jeremy Corbyn isn't a Labour candidate. He's standing against the Labour Party. I just contrast that with Liz Truss, who is still a Conservative Party candidate. And Rishi Sunak, because he is so weak, has refused to take action against Liz Truss, as he's refusing to take action against these candidates who are caught up in this insider gambling scandal.
Just a genuine question about, your own support of Jeremy Corbyn. Look, I absolutely take your point that you didn't vote for him to be leader, you don't come from his wing of the party. But it is true, you were one of his, most prominent media performers for a long time. You were out there defending his policies, defending his premiership on the airways a lot. I know, because I was there.
I was out there talking about the health service and talking about what I wanted to do to fix the health service. But I think we both know that neither of us expected Jeremy Corbyn to win. We were both anticipating a hammering for the Labour Party in those elections. We did get a hammering. When you've been a member of this party since you was 15, I mean, this is whatever people think of the political parties, the Labour Party's been around for over 100 years. It's bigger than any one individual. It's created the NHS, it introduced the minimum wage, it introduced lots of race relations and equality legislation in the 1960s. Those of us who believe in the cause of social justice wanted to do all we could to fight for the future of the Labour Party and ensure that once that election was over, we were in a position to pick up the pieces, which we have done. And we've changed the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn's not a candidate in this election. Liz Truss is a candidate. And after all the damage that she's done, after sharing platforms with Steve Bannon and not taking on people with very extremist views, she's still a Tory candidate. Rishi Sunak's done nothing about her, and he's done nothing about these candidates up to their necks in this gambling scandal.
Let's throw forward, shall we? Because today there was some interesting reaction from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, very respected think tank. They've accused pretty much all parties of a conspiracy of silence over public finances and ducking the painful choices that are going to be needed after the election. Now, this is what I don't get. For some parties, that kind of makes sense, right? Because if you're not going to win the election, you can promise whatever you want. You can promise, apple pie and ice cream, absolutely no problem. But for Labour, the polls suggest you're on track to win the election. So, don't you need to be a bit more honest in your manifesto?
Well, of course, the IFS are right to raise their concerns about the state of the public finances because they are shot to pieces because of the decisions taken by Liz Truss and the Conservatives. But absolutely spot on in raising those concerns. But where we part company from the IFS is that we think we can be better in this country on growth. Understand why the IFS are sceptical, because growth has been paltry these last 14 years under the Tories. But we've got an industrial policy to stimulate growth. We've got a science policy to stimulate growth, a skills policy, a welfare reform policy, an energy policy. And we think focusing on all of these big microeconomic issues, if you like, will actually get growth motoring in our economy, which will transform the position of the public finances.
Putting aside whether or not the growth strategy will work, because obviously we've heard that from many politicians before, but even assuming it does work, firstly, the current growth forecasts many people think are already wildly optimistic. Secondly, growth is not going to happen on day one, and the IFS are basically saying, look, you're going to have whoever wins, they're going to have to either put up taxes or cut public spending. Don't you have to roll the pitch a bit if you're Labour? Because otherwise, you might win the election, voters turn around and say, hang on a minute, this was not what we expected.
Well, let me just give you two quick things, like planning reform, right? We're prepared to do planning reform to get building. We know that planning reform has always stalled in this country, often because Conservative MPs have blocked it because they've got an interest in terms of the constituencies
Objection
they
for the
represent.
first year,
We're going to take those tough decisions to reform planning so we can get building. The second thing is we are going to reform welfare and get people back to work. If you can hit a target of 80% employment, you'll get 2 million more people into jobs. That's not only good for those individuals, quite obviously, that adds to economic growth and it adds to the overall wealth in the economy. So we have got detailed policies that we believe can turn the corner on this paltry anemic growth we've had for these last 14 years.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Jonathan Ashworth there talking to us from the spin room at the Sun election event.